A second teen died over the weekend following the double shooting near the Columbia Mall. That shooting prompting more questions about the juvenile justice system. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. That suspect, 18-year-old Emmett Zaya, was released on home detention weeks before he was charged with the shooting. And now critics are pointing to flaws within the justice system that allowed the suspect to slip through the cracks. We have live team coverage. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell is looking at the efforts to hold the parents of young offenders accountable. But we begin with Mackenzie Frost. She joins us live to explain how this situation highlights the cracks in the criminal justice system. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Mary and Kai, Emmett Zaya has a juvenile record, but because of current state laws, the public has no idea about any services that he may have received under DJS, if any at all. And this is raising questions as more lives are forever changed about the effectiveness of DJS. When Emmett Zaya was brought to court in December, accused of attempted first-degree murder and burglary, the Howard County judge learned about his past, including a history with the Department of Juvenile Services. But the public has no clue what services DJS provided to Zaya. As it turns out, it may not just be the public left in the dark.
Good afternoon. This is the House Judiciary Committee.
After a scathing report showing DJS does not provide adequate oversight and performance metrics for programming, lawmakers are demanding answers. In the House,
I'd like a little bit more information about that. I'd like a little bit more information about the follow-up that happens when in the delegate's example, they're resolved at intake because they are being diverted to some program. Who's following up with the program on the backside?
And in the Senate,
the department places the youth with a non-DJS contracted community-based service provider, and at that point it's like a black hole because you don't track what happens, and that struck me as irresponsible.
The report revealed juvenile cases resolved at intake and referred to contracted community-based services account for 30% of the cases, meaning there's no records of kids being sent to services for 70%. Meanwhile, Secretary Vincent Schiraldi pushing back, arguing kids are getting necessary services.
It is wrong that we cannot quantify that the way we should be able to. That is, I absolutely agree with the Opega report on that. But that does not mean that those kids aren't getting services.
But again, there's no data showing the outcomes. Zaya's case also highlights another gap in the system: swift and accurate ankle monitoring. At the time of the Columbia Mall shooting, Zaya was wearing a GPS monitor, a requirement of his pretrial release stemming from the November 28th attempted murder incident, one day before he turned 18. That monitor coming from the private home detention company ASAP. In court documents obtained by Fox 45 News, Zaya had a string of violations in the weeks leading up to the Columbia shooting. But it wasn't until the day before gunfire erupted outside the mall did ASAP notify the court of Zaya's violations.
What we had here is systematic failure.
Jeremy Eldridge, a Baltimore area trial attorney not associated with this case, says Zaya's situation highlights the gaps in the system when it comes to home monitoring.
It appears as though the home detention company did not alert the court in a prompt fashion so that the court could take action.
While the examples of the broken system pile up, in Columbia, it's not clear why the judge allowed Zaya to be released on ankle monitoring while facing attempted homicide charges in the first place. We followed up with the private home detention company again today after the company did not get back to us last week, but we asked them why they waited so long to file notification of those violations with the court. The company tells me that Zaya's supervision is under investigation, and they have no further comment. Mary?
And Mackenzie, you've been reporting on this issue for a couple of years now, and you know there are many examples of the questions raised about DJS and its ability to track young people, isn't there?
Yeah, Mary, that's right. There are several examples. One we know for sure was Tristan Jackson, who was arrested in connection to the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Jackson was wearing an ankle monitor at the time of when the gunfire erupted. Police officers and investigators tracked his location using that GPS to the Brooklyn Homes area. Jackson was wearing an ankle monitor stemming from a previous incident when he brought a loaded handgun to school. And then there were two brutal attacks arrests near Patterson Park. First, 2 young people were seen on surveillance video attacking a woman. One of those juveniles in that video was 12 years old, who was known to police after he was picked up for a string of car thefts when he was 11. And then last fall, another brutal surveillance video showing an attack of an elderly man, 66 years old, who was beaten until he was lying motionless in the street. Both suspects involved in that case were also wearing ankle monitors and known to DJS. Now, at this point, it's unclear if lawmakers, while they're questioning Secretary Schiraldi and demanding answers, we don't know if they're going to use the power of the purse strings to withhold any potential funding for DJS until they get more transparency. Live in the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you for watching. Here's another video for you to watch. Also, take some time to subscribe to our YouTube channel.